Happy Monday to you. It's Alan Schimmel. You're watching TechStrong TV, and today is July 20th. It is Monday. Hope you had a great weekend. We are in the dog days of summer. It's really hot down here in South Florida. Of course, it's also really scary a bit right now, to be honest with you. The numbers are pretty daunting. Our hospitals are filling up, and death tolls keep rising. You know, all we could do is do our part, wear a mask, wash your hands, socially distance, don't go into big crowds. We here at the media ops offices, we still remain with just Paul, our video director, and Brian, our video team member, and myself here in the office. It's a pretty big office just for the three of us. But anyway, we hope wherever you are, you're safe, and that you are wearing a mask, and that you are practicing social distancing, and as important, that you're able to get work done. You're able to do what we need to do to keep the wheels moving here, keep the lights on. So much of what we're doing in tech is so critical now, more critical than ever, in terms of making sure that people can get stuff online, order online, and then of course the frontline folks who actually have to deliver the goods. You know, God bless them, and it's not easy. Anyway, the good news is I've been reading so much optimistic news about progress being made on vaccines, potential therapeutics, treatments, so help is on the way, and I think we just need to hold down the fort here for another 2 months, 3 months, and hopefully we'll see some great news breaking that'll help us out here. So let's get on with our show for Monday. We've got a good one lined up for you. I've got an interesting first interview. The fellow's name is Gaurang Torkavar. He's the CEO of a company called Endorse.io. It's INDORSE.io. This service is not available in the US yet. It started in Singapore, Southeast Asia, and has now moved to London, UK, and will be expanding in Europe. It really helps address systematic racism, sexism, prejudice within our tech community, within our own developer community. What it is an HR company or an HR department can utilize Endorse to evaluate clients developers who code. And how Endorse works is they ask prospective candidates to write some code, and that code is then reviewed by a panel of independent experts who don't know what the sex of the candidate is, what the candidate's name is, so they can't make assumptions based on names. They don't know, obviously, the race, color, creed, religion. They just know code, and they evaluate the candidates based on the strength of the code they wrote and give their recommendations to the HR department. And then theoretically, the HR department picks the candidate with the best code. And you know what? Maybe that's not a bad thing. Maybe that's something that kind of thing we need to do here in the country to address some of the systematic problems that seem to plague us after so many years. Anyway, Gaurang's going to tell us about why he started the company, how it's grown, and what they're doing now as they move into the UK market. Good interview. I then had the real pleasure of chatting with Glenn Weinstein. Glenn is I think it's the chief customer officer at Twilio, which is a company most of you know. They did they conducted a survey on COVID work from home patterns, and it was, I don't know if anything was truly shocking. I think a lot of it was reinforcing what we already know and think, but it was nevertheless some good stuff there, and Glenn has some excellent insight. So I think you're going to enjoy that one. Then I had the pleasure of talking with Joe Saunders and Mark Galpin. Mark is with the partner team at JFrog for Artifactory partners. And Joe Saunders is CEO, founder of a company called Cybersecurity. They've recently announced kind of a plugin that allows their Cybersecurity product to run within the Artifactory on the Artifactory instance of your, if you're using Artifactory, to help provide better security. Good article, a good interview, and I think it also serves as a good blueprint for how companies can work with large repo providers, whether it be a GitHub, a GitLab, or JFrog, or Sonatypes, Nexus, or what have you. So, good interview there. Check that out. Then we're going to go into something old from our TechStrong conference of it's about a month and a half ago now. And happy to have Matt Buckner of Flux 7. And Matt gave a really good presentation where it's a tale of two different customers' AWS container strategy. And night and day in terms of how they were both somewhat successful, but in how they approach this, and Matt gives us a fantastic case study on it. I think you'll enjoy it. Then we're going to I'll be here with the news, obviously, after that, as usual. And then we'll head over to Charlene O'Hanlon. Charlene has Dave Furneaux, CEO of VerSec, on today, as well as a great webinar preview of our webinars for today and tomorrow here on Media Ops. There's some good ones if you can make them. Of course, they're also available on demand. And then over on our analyst corner, we'll have Mitchell Ashley. And today, Mitchell's joined by another one of our ASG superheroes, Bob Resselman, the man behind RollBob and The Adventures of Network Man and The Adventures of Microservice and so many other things Bob does, as well as writing some fantastic articles and books and essays. And so Bob joins Mitch today. Should be a good one. And then I'll be back to wrap things up. Sounds like it's a fantastic Monday. We're going to take a quick break right now with a commercial, and I'll be right back with our first guest.
Join top experts and peers for a Splunk virtual event, DevOps Open Source Insights and Innovations. Open source powers the world, drives innovation in technology and in practice, and reduces the proliferation of products that just don't work together. In the arena of DevOps, open source tools and standards enable problems to get solved. Come take a look at some of the ways Splunk solves problems with open source and how we are contributing to open source solutions to make your work life better. Register today.
All right, as I mentioned at the top of the show, our first guest today is the CEO founder of a company I found really interesting. I think I probably mangled his name earlier on, but let me see if I can get it correct here. It's Gaurang Torvikar. And Gaurang is the CEO of a company called Indorse. And they've created a system. It's really a meritocracy kind of play to take systematic racism, sexism, prejudice out of the hiring process, at least for developers. And it really evaluates code from candidates in a classic blind, where the people evaluating the code know nothing about the candidate's name, sex, race, color, religion, etc. And I think it has legs. I think it's something I'd like to see cross over from code into other areas and certainly come to the U.S. as well. Anyway, let's now go to my conversation with Gaurang Torvikar of Endorse.io, that's with an I, and find out more about what they're doing.
This is Digital Anarchist.
Hey everyone, thanks for joining us on this segment of TechStrong TV. Our guest for this segment is Gaurang Torvikar of Endorse.io. And Gaurang, welcome to TechStrong TV.
Hey, thank you, Alan.
Thanks for joining us. So Gaurang, I apologize for my heavy tongue in trying to get these names right. Why don't you do me a favor, though, for our audience, give us the correct pronunciation of your name, and the company, and the website.
Sure. Hi. I'm Gaurang Torvikar from Endorse. The website is indorse.io.
Excellent. So, Gaurang, we have not exposed our audience to the Endorse company before, and that is Endorse with an I. Can you give us a little background. What is Endorse about?
Sure. Endorse is a coding assessment platform. We have a community of software developers who conduct coding assessments on the candidates coming on the platform.
Excellent. And how long have you been in business?
We have been in business for more than 3 years now. We started this company back in Singapore. That was in 2017, right? And now we are expanding into the UK since the last year. So we have an audience across Southeast Asia and also Europe now.
Excellent. So, Gaurang, what about your background? What's your position with the company? How did you come to be involved?
Yeah. So I'm the co-founder and CEO of Endorse. Personally, I've been a software developer and working in the software industry for more than 10 years now. Before starting this company, I've been working in various technologies as a developer. Technologies like artificial intelligence, blockchain, and most recently HR tech with Endorse.
Very cool. Now, Gaurang, I've spoken to hundreds, if not thousands, of founders and co-founders over the years. And, every single one that's been successful always feels that what they're doing in some small way is changing the world for the better, is making the world better. So, in your own words, what is Endorse doing that's making the world better?
No, that's a great question. So, with all the current events going on across the world, right? So there's so much discrimination in the workplace, and we call it unconscious bias. In that people are discriminated because of their race, color, or name, or any of these things, right? But on Endorse, what matters is your skills. So what happens on Endorse is candidates come on the platform, they submit their code, and based on their code, they are evaluated against a number of other candidates. So in this case, the human experts who are doing the evaluations, they don't even know where you're coming from. They don't know who you are. The only thing they see is the code that you've written. And they evaluate you based only on that, only on your capabilities, only on your skills. So I think because of this, we are trying to solve a very important problem in the world, right?
It's a problem here in the U.S., obviously, with what we've been having going on here. It's certainly a problem, and not just, the obvious stuff you see on TV is the Black Lives Matter movement and what's been going on, and it's been going on here for a very long time, unfortunately. But this is a worldwide issue, right? Here, like on DevOps.com, for instance, right? 36% or 37% of our audience is from the US, about 31 or 32% is from Europe, 15% are from India, right? So naturally, when we do a webinar or any sort of audience participation, interactivity, 15% or more, right, are going to be from India, because that's the numbers, right? It may have 18% here, 12% here, but it's about 15%. And yet, we'll get a lot of sponsors who say, well, no, we're only looking for North America, or we're only looking for Western Europe. We don't want registrations from India. They want Singapore, right? Because Singapore is such a big hub. But we don't want Middle East, maybe, right? Or Africa or South America. And, and I get why they do it, because they're looking where the dollars are. But to discriminate against developers based upon geographically where they are, or what color their skin is, or race, or their name, as you mentioned, is just ludicrous. And, when you think about it, and I don't mean to take over your interview for you, but we estimate that there's something like 40 million software developers in the world, right? 42 million, something like that. And growing about 20% a year. So that means like 8 million new software developers coming on every year. It would be one of the fastest growing countries on earth if software developers were a nation, right? And so you have that kind of, but yet that's not enough software developers to fill all of the need that we need for software developers. And so, it makes no sense in a market where we need every single software developer we can get to be discriminating against them based upon race or creed or sexual orientation or what have you.
There have been studies where people send the same resume with different names and different profiles, same exact resume, same schools, same projects, same companies. But, people who don't have the typical names, they get much lesser replies, So we have been trying to solve that problem since the get-go by focusing only on the skills,
That's a great thing. So what kind of response have you been getting?
So we have had multiple enterprise companies using the platform and also a lot of SMEs across Southeast Asia doing it. Most recently, with the COVID situation coming around, we realized that hiring is not going to be the main focus for the next few months at least. And hence, we also launched a new platform. So we went down the value chain. So instead of focusing only on hiring new developers, we are also focusing on developers who exist within your company. So we have launched a new tool called Metamorph, which focuses on performance analytics for your software developers. So, we do quick pulse surveys and we focus on some important metrics in DevOps. So I don't know if you know the book called Accelerate. This book
Sure.
actually, this book
From Nicole Forsgren, right? Dr. Nicole Forsgren, yeah.
So it mentions the four metrics for a high-performing team, which are software delivery, speed of development, stability, all these things. And based on those metrics, we are actually benchmarking the developers within the companies against the best developers in the world. So, I think we're doing some pretty exciting things.
That is very exciting. Gaurang, are you seeing a slowdown in the hiring of developers?
Oh, yeah, definitely.
You mentioned that.
Yeah. But at the same time, engineering managers, for example, they are more concerned about the well-being of their team and the performance of their team. Actually, we have some interesting data on this. So in the last few months, since the lockdown started, we have been doing some roundtables with engineering managers across Europe. So we have spoken with about more than 100 people until now. The interesting numbers they've given. So what they say is, since the lockdown started and remote working became the norm, the productivity has gone up, definitely gone up. After a slow dip in the beginning, it has gone up. But it has also resulted in a lot of burnouts within the engineers. So these are some interesting metrics.
Yeah, no, we're seeing that here as well. The what's driving here is, in many places in the U.S., including Silicon Valley and other cities, it was not unusual for a person to spend an hour or more each way commuting back and forth to their office. So by working from home, they get 2 extra hours at least to work. And so they use that, so you get more productivity with those extra time. But on top of that, people don't shut off at 5 o'clock like when they'd leave their office or whatever. And so they wind up working even more hours. So yes, productivity has gone up. I've seen numbers as high as 30% or more. But it's not sustainable is the issue. Right? And so you do get more burnout and stuff like that. And I think so this whole issue of developer burnout, or worker, IT industry burnout, is something I had a chance a couple of years ago in London at the DevOps Enterprise Summit. I did a panel with Dr. Forsgren, who wrote the Accelerate book, as well as 2 other PhDs, Dr. Steven Spear from MIT, and then Dr. Christina Maslick, who's probably the foremost authority on burnout. Because burnout's a real thing recognized by the World Health and everything. And the problem is with when you have short-term crises or issues like we're going through with COVID, you could do it in a short-term thing, but the long-term sustainability of that sort of always being in crisis mode, it just doesn't work.
Exactly. So, some of the engineering managers have shared some amazing things that they are doing with their engineers. So in London, one of the managers is like, I don't set any meetings after 4 p.m., for example. Or
Really?
I ask them to just, stop working, or I don't send any Slack messages after 5 p.m., for example. So I think engineering managers are being really cognizant about this, and they're taking certain steps to avoid this. And I think that's a really good sign for the industry, I would say.
I agree with you. That is a good sign. You're mentioning it. I try to do the same thing here in my own company, right? A lot of times I'll get slacked or messaged, and I'll write to people and say, hey, we could talk about it tomorrow. There's really no need for you at 8 o'clock at night to for us to be going over this. Interesting stuff. One of the things I wanted to ask you is, what happens when you find obvious cases of discrimination? I mean, is that something you bring to the attention of a hiring manager? Is it something you just note for research purposes? So it would seem that you're good at uncovering potential discrimination. What do we do about fixing it?
No, that's a great question. So at Indoors, by the inherent nature of the assessment system, we try to avoid it in the first place, right? So when our experts are actually doing the evaluations, they don't see who the other person is. And then at the end of it, the hiring manager from this company, they are able to see all the results and all the evaluations in a very unbiased manner.
I see. Now I understand. I didn't get the model. So what happens is the hiring manager hires you basically to evaluate applicants for a job, and you give them their rankings, if you will, in a totally unbiased environment, discounting out all of that.
After that, what they do with it is up to us, so the final decision is not in our hands, definitely. But we at least try to make the evaluations unbiased in the first step, so that they get all the data on a dashboard without any bias.
I love it. That's a great. So this is Indorse, INDORSE. And is it .com or .io?
Both, .com.io. Yeah.
Both of them work. And it's primarily in Southeast Asia, Singapore and the region, but now also coming, is it just to the London, UK market or all of Europe?
So we started with the UK market to begin with, and next year we'll be expanding it to Europe as well.
Love it. Really great stuff. Excellent. Gaurang, we're almost out of time here. I want to thank you for joining us on TechStrong TV. Silly question. Plans on coming to the U.S. market?
Yeah, definitely. But I don't know how the world is going to shape up in the next year. So we're still, wait and watch.
Oh, I look forward to seeing you here. All right. Gaurang, thanks for joining us. That was Gaurang Torvikar, right? From Indorse with an I. Excellent model of allowing hiring managers to hire people free of bias that may kind of creep systematically into your system. And it's something I think the world needs. Keep up the great work, Gaurang. We'll hope to see you again soon.
Great. Thank you, Alan.
Thank you very much. This is Alan Schimmel for TechStrong TV. We're going to be right back with our next guest. Okay, back here in the studio now. Our next interview is with Glenn Weinstein. Glenn is the Chief Customer Officer at Twilio. Twilio is a company that touches so much of so many of us because their components, if you will, are embedded into so many different applications. And so Glenn and the Twilio team recently did a survey on COVID-19 working from home patterns. And I'm not going to say anything here was totally shocking, but I think it really reinforces and gives us numbers behind what we're seeing. So let's now go to my conversation with Glenn Weinstein of Twilio.
This is Digital Anarchist.
Hey everyone, thanks for joining us on another segment here for TechStrong TV. My guest this segment is Glenn Weinstein of Twilio. And first of all, Glenn, hey, welcome to TechStrong TV.
Thank you, Alan. Thanks for having me.
You know, I was going to introduce your title, but as long as we've already introduced your name, why don't you give them your title?
Sure, Alan. I'm the Chief Customer Officer here at Twilio. We're a leader in cloud communications technology.
I think most of our audience is familiar with Twilio and I've heard the name. Certainly have heard the name, but even beyond that, are familiar with what Twilio does. But if you wouldn't mind, Glenn, just a little bit more depth for our folks.
Yeah, well, Twilio has a developer network 8 million strong, so you're right about a lot of people knowing Twilio. But Twilio was a real leader in cloud communication APIs. Came on the scene in 2008, gave developers a way to bake telephone calls, voice phone calls into their applications. Picked up additional communications channels over the years. We're very well known for SMS, for video, for messenger type technologies. Company went public in 2016. We're at about a $1.5 billion revenue run rate, 200,000 customers. Twilio is baked into software all around the world in every industry and every type of software.
Email as well, right?
Absolutely. Twilio made an acquisition last year of SendGrid. Yep, one of the world's leading email sending platforms. So email now another prominent channel that you can address through Twilio. That also brought us about 80,000 additional customers.
Yeah, no, so my background is from Boulder. Spent a lot of time in Boulder with Brad Feld and the Foundry and Techstars folks.
That's right. Yeah,
so
SendGrid was a big success story.
Yeah, it really was. Great story. It was a great story. The two founders there and how they started that company. I had a chance to meet them when they were still at Techstars. Yeah, good stuff. Anyway, but Glenn, we can talk about Twilio all day. I mean, it really is a great success story. But the reason I wanted to have you on today is you guys recently sponsored or commissioned a survey by a third party, and a pretty big survey, 2,500 plus, or almost 2,500 responders.
Yes. Yeah, we were trying to find out, Alan. Basically, we've had our own observations about what COVID-19 has meant to our customer base, but ultimately that's a set of anecdotal observations. We really wanted to validate our findings with an objective survey not done by Twilio that asked people in every type of organization, anything 500 people and above, basically, to say, what is COVID-19 doing to your digital transformation strategy? And specifically, what is it changing about how you're looking at digital communications, an area of special interest to Twilio? So the response rate was fantastic, and it was a global survey as well, 8 different countries, the leading economies. But the results were the real eye-opener. And it's something I would love to share with you a couple of the details, because the near unanimity of responses that this is different. This is a real catalyst, unlike anything we've seen before. The amount that this is accelerating people's digital transformation and digital communication strategies is really overwhelming.
I mean, Glenn, we haven't done formal survey, but I speak to 4 or 5 people a day, just like I'm talking to you now. And I will tell you, it just feels like we've done 6 years of cloud global, digital transformation in the last 3 months.
Well, it's funny you said that, Alan, because that is an exact question we asked. How many years, if any, does this accelerate your digital transformation or digital communication strategy? 6 years was the average answer.
Really?
Yes, across thousands of customers.
Wow.
So
okay.
6 years and maybe a quarter.
Yeah, in the last 3 months. It really is. You know what? I'm going to stop right there because, you get to yes, stop. I won. I'm going to retire undefeated.
It's a microphone drop moment.
Yeah, but I'm going to let you give us the rest of the answers.
Sure. We started with a very basic question. Is COVID-19 speeding up your digital transformation? 97% of respondents said yes. How about your digital communication strategy? 96% said yes. Wow. The 6 years I mentioned. Is transforming your digital communications a critical challenge under COVID-19? 92% said yes. So these are feeding into anecdotes that we believe we're seeing in our customer base. An urgent need to add digital communications channels to your normal workflows with consumers. You think about Twilio, most of our customers are basically B2C customers. So we're dealing with businesses who in turn are dealing with end consumers. And think of how much has had to been transformed in just a few months. We've had to move to contactless delivery in retail. We've had to move to distance learning in education. We've had to move to telemedicine in healthcare. These were maybe things that companies were thinking of doing in the next few years that they had to now do in a week or a month, and the surveys really reflected that acceleration.
I mean, I'm not going to sit here and say I'm shocked because I'm not. I mean, this is exactly what we're seeing. I've always had this theory, Glenn. I'm a serial entrepreneur, and I've mentored many entrepreneurs as well. And I always tell people, if don't ever open a business where you're selling a nice to have. Always sell a must have.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Right? Well, digital communications are now a must-have. Think about, one of the most common channels that people come to Twilio for is SMS. Suddenly, SMS has moved from a nice-to-have to a must-have. If you're going to message your customer that their delivery is coming, their grocery delivery, scenarios like that. We've had education customers that are now moving to SMS as a channel for delivering materials to students. Not every student has access to home internet. They can't necessarily get on a Zoom with their teacher or get their schoolwork. We have customers now using SMS to deliver PDFs that a student can read and keep up with their studies. So SMS now, absolutely critical channel. This is true across the board of voice channel, video channel, messenger channels. They're all critical now, and we found ourselves in the right place at the right time.
Absolutely. So many questions that I want to go, or areas I want to touch on this with you. Here's the other thing, though, is thank God that we do have things like a Twilio, like Zoom, like the internet itself. Because, I mean, what a bleak existence we would be having right now had it not been for these digital transformative, truly, right? The word's transformative technologies that enable us to be relatively comfortable.
Well, you're absolutely right, Alan, and this is a moment for developers to really step forward and shine. If this had happened 2 decades ago, we'd be in a lot of trouble. We would have a lot of roadblocks in our way. You'd have to acquire hardware. Think about the problems AWS has solved for us 15 years ago. You don't have to acquire servers and storage. Well, now you don't have to acquire telephony and communications and switches and all that. Everything is just available as an API on the internet. So this is a moment for developers to take the skills that we've been building over the years, ability to build at cloud scale, cloud speed, software agility, and start building these solutions that we can get into production in days or weeks. It's another thing we've seen at Twilio is not just a rapid acceleration of sales cycles, but a rapid acceleration of deployment cycles. Customers are going from their buying decision to a application in production in weeks or days sometimes. And developers are the ones that are powering that.
So this is another thing that I think we've seen. You know, we did a big virtual event about a little over a month ago called TechStrong Con, and one of the keynotes was Emmett Keefe, who runs the Insight Ignite program for Insight Partners. And Emmett Emmett has one of the biggest networks I've met of personal people, and he did an informal survey about what are the kinds of projects that are getting accelerated, green lighted, funded, accelerated versus projects that are moving back, and these kinds of projects that deal with transformation and enablement. Yeah, I mean, sky's the limit. It's just get it done now, and also the decision time and picking the solution, and all of that is just really, really compressed. It's almost, remember we used to have the term internet time, Glenn? The time now we have like COVID internet time that's even crunched it, further.
We're seeing that firsthand. We asked in the survey direct questions about how has COVID-19 changed your decision process inside your company, and we gave choices like it's easier to get funding, it's easier to get attention, it's easier to get on the radar. And again, we saw answers in the 60, 70, 80% range where it's made a significant difference. We've done surveys like this before. I've read a lot of surveys like this. It's amazing to get 40% of respondents to agree to anything, much less 70, 80, 90%. So even at specific kind of decision points of now I can get funding, I can get a security approval in my company quicker than I used to be able to. I can get a contract quicker, so that we can get these systems out the door. Great time to be alive. Great time to be a developer.
Yeah, great. I mean, and let me just mention this too, because I think we really have to. Most of the people watching this are in the tech world. They're developers, they're DevOps, they're security, cloud native, digital transformation people. And some of them have had layoffs, not many, and those who've got laid off are probably, doing a lot of different interviews for jobs right now because there's plenty of jobs for them.
Right.
Remember that the rest of the world's not that lucky, right? There's still 1 million something people a week here in the U.S. alone filing unemployment claims, and the unemployment rate is at depression levels. So I always try to temper these things by saying count your blessings, right, in the tech industry, because we are blessed that we even have jobs, that we even aren't suffering the way a lot of people are suffering.
You're right, Alan. We really feel that acutely at Twilio because we see the stories that our customers are bringing to us. A lot of our recent work in the past few months has been assisting state and city governments in rolling out contact tracing applications. Many states and cities have adopted our SMS technology, our voice technology. They've integrated that into CRM systems, and they're putting it to use doing contact tracing. These are the projects that had to get live in literally days.
Like that, yeah.
Decision, right. Every day you delay is one more day that you've not you haven't reached.
Not tracing. Yeah, no, it's crazy.
It's crazy. And another area of a big project kind of ramp up has been on things like 311 and 211 programs. The United Way has a 211 call program that saw 100% plus call volume increases. Now, in that business, you're not looking to deflect calls. You're just looking to handle more calls. Right. Every call is a human being on the other side that needs to talk to somebody. So by implementing creative IVRs that they can tie to bots that can give answers to common questions and then route you to a United Way agent if you really need to speak to someone, we've enabled the United Way to increase their reach through 211 programs. Again, this is not something you wait on. You don't schedule that for Q4. You've got to get that out the door right now.
Excellent. Good stuff. Glenn, with the rest of the time we have left, I want to cross over into another area. And I don't know if this is something you asked on the survey or not, but certainly we've many times moved heaven and earth here to try to enable things that needed to be enabled during this time of crisis. And I don't think anything goes back to the way it was before because time doesn't run backwards, right? But what sticks, if you will, right? What do you think the longer lasting repercussions, are of this?
Right. Well, the short-term impact that we saw, you can see it in different industries. The hospitality industry, the rideshare industry, these industries took big hits, and we see that in our numbers. Other industries have been accelerated, but in the long term, they'll come back. Hospitality is coming back. rideshare is coming back. But what's not going to get reversed is this digital communications transformation. Once you start adopting multiple channels to talk to your customers and have two-way conversations, you're not going to get rid of that in the future. We'll beat the pandemic eventually, and things will start to go back to normal. But I guarantee that these multi-channel ways of interacting with B2C vendors, we're getting used to them, and they won't be reversed. I think we'll hold on to these gains. Contactless delivery, telemedicine applications, all these things they're just additive ways to improve communications between us and our vendors.
Absolutely. My own, again, not survey, but my own objective thing is, I kind of like not having to go to the supermarket, and just having Whole Foods drop stuff off or what have you. I do, there's a lot that I don't think ever goes back. I think the other thing is, and I don't know, again, if you guys asked any questions around this, around the whole remote working environment, right? And how, communications enables us to work remotely without really a fall off in product. Probably even in some people are saying a gain in productivity.
We've seen a mix on that. Some people gaining, but it is not everybody has a great work from home setup. But we did ask in the survey whether COVID-19 was pushing your organization to embrace more remote work using digital communications and technologies. 99% of respondents said yes. 67% said definitely yes. 32% said probably yes. The only areas so everybody unanimously is embracing this idea of remote work. A little bit less so in certain industries, but even in those industries like financial services, 60% said yes. They're typically going to be a laggard in that kind of thing. In geographies, in Japan, only 52% of companies said yes, but really? 52% compared to the 99%. For Japan, that's a big change in the way that they're used to work.
Sure. Right.
Yeah, so it's changing cultures and it's changing industries, and it's not limited to just us techies.
Now, look, I'll admit it, up until this, we had 2 or 3 people that lived out of state, so they were remote, but everyone else came to our office. I'm sitting on an empty office with 3.5 years of lease left. And you're right, COVID, God willing, is going to end soon. But my people have already said, look, maybe we'll come in once a week, twice a week to say hello. But we're operating fine. And
well, I think we'll settle into we'll settle into a blend. I can tell you at Twilio, we're all anxious to get back to our offices, to see people, to have meetings, and there's a certain amount of course that we're all missing out on. So I think we'll settle into a new normal, but that new normal will be more engaging for people that work remotely. Take a global company where the headquarters are in the US and they've got their Europe office and their Asia office, and it's hard for those people to kind of get a word in a conference. We've changed that culture now where people have all felt what we're feeling now, like what is it like to dial in remotely? And I think that's a permanent change to just have a more inclusive environment like that.
Absolutely. It would be interesting, Glenn, if you guys could repeat this survey, let's say at the first of the year, and God willing, we're kind of past the COVID crisis, by the first of the year, and see, what people see going forward and what they've seen now.
Yeah, how much will stick? They said that this has accelerated their plans 6 years, and we can ask them next year, did that really come true?
It'd be interesting.
Yeah, it certainly seems like it, given the level of activity that we're seeing at Twilio, the creativeness that our customers are using our products for. It's just, it's a broad-based API-based set of technologies that Twilio has, so it really opens itself up to developer creativity, and
sure,
we're seeing it across the board, and just the most.
I got to tell you though, so Glenn, I think this is an important takeaway that our audience should recognize too. Just because I accelerated 6 years worth of digital transformation and digital communication transformation plans doesn't mean that I did a flash and I got 6 years in advance, I'm here, and now I don't have to do anything for 5 years. What it means is if you're not moving forward, you're dying, right? And so I'm here, but I may not advance as quickly as I did over this last 3 or 4 months, but I'm going to continue to advance the ball, right? I'm going to continue to move forward.
Yeah, I think it's useful to think of it in terms of prioritization, that we now have the budget, we have the everybody's moving in lockstep, legal, finance, IT, et cetera. We're getting contracts approved faster. So the onus is now on the techies, the developer community, to take this license that they've been given now and run with it. And there's a lot of hard work ahead of us to figure out all these new solutions, but at least we've got a clearer path to get there than we've historically had in the IT industry.
Glenn, thanks for joining us, man. This has been great. You know what? Sheesh, where can people get information on the survey?
We're going to post it at Twilio.com, and we'll have some more details when you hit our landing page. We'll give you a little hint to where to find the details.
That's excellent, man. Glenn, thank you. Thank you to all the folks at Twilio for helping us, as we explore Star Trek, right? Where no man's gone, where no person's gone before.
Yeah, glad to be a part of it, Alan. Thank you for having me.
All right, Glenn Weinstein, Twilio here on TechStrong TV. This is Alan Schimmel. We'll be right back with our next guest.
ContainerJournal.com is the leading online destination for centralized computing-related content. ContainerJournal.com covers all aspects of software containers, from container management, data management for containers, container security, networking for containers, to the entire container ecosystem, Kubernetes, microservices, serverless, and more. ContainerJournal.com has the largest selection of container-related news, featuring breaking news, blog posts, podcasts, and more. Visit www.containerjournal.com to learn more. ContainerJournal.com is operated by MediaOps Inc., the team behind DevOps.com, Digital Anarchist, SecurityBoulevard.com, DevOps Connect, and DevOpsDozen.com.
Our next interview is actually with two folks. I was happy to be joined with Mark Galpin, who is with JFrog on the Artifactory partnership team, and Joe Saunders, who's the CEO, founder of RunSafe Security. RunSafe has recently done an integration into JFrog's Artifactory that allows you to use the RunSafe Security service as part of your Artifactory install, or a part of your Artifactory usage. Joe and Mark will explain it a lot better in our interview, but I think it's a great example of how companies are sort of piggybacking these big repo providers such as JFrog or GitLab or GitHub to provide functionality to developers, to DevOps teams, and riding on, these repos become sort of a platform, if you will. So anyway, here's my interview with Joe Saunders of RunSafe Security and Mark Galpin of JFrog.
This is Digital Anarchist.
Hey everyone, thanks for joining us on another session here for TechStrong TV. I have two guests in this session. Let me introduce you to Joseph Saunders of RunSafe Security and Mark Galpin of JFrog. Joe, Mark, welcome to TechStrong TV.
Thanks, Alan. It's great to be here. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Hey, Mark.
Be here.
It's our pleasure to have you on. Mark, our audience is really familiar with JFrog, but just to get it out of the way, I'm going to let you go first. Introduce yourself and what you do at JFrog.
Yeah. So my name is Mark Galpin. I'm the product manager for the community and partner ecosystem at JFrog. So I get the real fun job, I think, at JFrog, because I get to focus on all of the ways that JFrog works with the broader DevOps ecosystem to really make our products work really well, right? DevOps is not something that any single tool can do by itself. It's something that involves all of the ecosystem working together and developing the process and for me, this job is probably one of the most exciting aspects of working at JFrog, is getting to work with partners like RunSafe and see the cool things that they're doing on top of our platform.
Very cool. Joe, why don't so as familiar as our audience is with JFrog, they may not be familiar with RunSafe Security. So I'm going to ask you to both introduce yourself, your background, as well as your company.
Sure. Yeah, so I'm Joe Saunders. I'm the founder and CEO of RunSafe Security. And we really, at RunSafe Security, our goal is to help software development teams to immunize software without developer friction, to help enable continuous delivery of code, to enable that continuous delivery, and to add security into your software binaries and the protections that you ship out to customers or internally. And so, we started the company about 3 years ago, and we are on a mission to help disrupt the economics from the attacker's perspective. And the way we do that is we add in protections into the development process that makes it very difficult for attackers to readily build an exploit that's reliable on targeted systems. So we've set out to disrupt hacker economics, and the way we do that is we add security protections into CI/CD pipelines, and that's why we're delighted to partner with JFrog, as you could imagine.
Very cool. And look, increasingly that CI/CD pipeline is not the battleground, but that's the place where the action is, right? That's where modern software, and the modern software factory, that is the assembly line. That is where things get done. So, let's talk specifically about this partnership, and I don't know if you want to call it an integration or is that an old-fashioned word? But give me the specifics here of how you guys are working together on this.
Sure. Well, I'd be happy to start, and obviously Mark can provide additional input. But what we've done is we've built a plugin for JFrog's Artifactory that can be deployed in seconds, really, and it allows developers to select and harden software binaries that are in that Artifactory. So as those are checked in or checked out and pushed along, those binaries can be hardened and immune from cyber attack. And so what we announced with our partnership was to make that plugin available to JFrog users. And that plugin ties into our security engine that we call Alchemist. And that security engine is what sort of does the magic. It adds in the security protections in a way that doesn't change system behavior. It doesn't slow down the performance of any systems, but it disrupts the attackers from compromising software at runtime when it's deployed in production systems. And so by making and hardening software binaries that are in those artifacts that are in Artifactory, it's a very simple way to add in security that doesn't require developers to change their workflows or disrupt their process or just change how they go about their business. The plugin works automatically with the Alchemist container and adds those security protections in, like I said, for runtime protections.
Mark, how about you?
Yeah, no, I think Joe summarized it well. I like to say that you can do almost anything with Artifactory user plugins. I actually really enjoyed working with RunSafe on this one because they kind of took me at my word. Really this takes a download request that a customer asks for, give me this binary, and it makes changes to that binary based on their platform. And usually this isn't something that people want to do. A lot of times people are really focused on give me the same binary every time. But this is a really cool use case of how can we really suppress a very common sort of exploit. And as an old C developer, I really appreciate the ability to sort of suppress this type of exploit, which is such an easy thing to leave in your code by mistake. And I thought it was just a really creative use of user plugins with Artifactory.
Excellent. Yeah, it is. We did a story a couple of weeks ago. I think it came out of the Palo Alto network research team about some guy who had put a container image up in Docker Hub. And it looked a very similar name to some of the more popular container images, but a little different. And it had all of the code that the popular container image that it was kind of, naming for did. But then it also had a little more code that turned the machine into a zombie to do Bitcoin mining for the people who put the hub up there. So again, so important. Right, so important, and by the way, it was there for a long time, and it was really almost a lark or coincidence that the research team at Palo Alto even found this. But that being said, it highlighted for me the importance of we tend to think just because things are in the repo that somehow they're okay, that it's safe, because after all, why would it be an Artifactory if it was potentially malicious or changed or hacked or what have you, and so having the security take place up there, so to speak, right? I know X-Ray, for instance, right, Mark? You guys you're looking at stuff as it's in, or it's already baked into that CI/CD pipeline. But from what I'm listening, Joe, you guys, this is taking place before that, right? Is that correct?
Yeah, so this is an insertion into Artifactory. It's a plugin for Artifactory, so those binaries can be hardened at that point. And I think part of the problem then that we're solving, if you think about third-party components that might be going into your code and your container and your final product, if you will, you don't, and that whole kind of software supply chain kind of challenge people have is, if you want to, if there are known vulnerabilities in that kind of open source code, then that could be used against your finished product, if you will. And so whether it's third-party binaries or binaries that you're producing yourselves, by utilizing the plugin inside Artifactory at that point, then you can create some assurance that at runtime you'll be protected. So, absolutely right. It's inserted at Artifactory.
Excellent. So I didn't ask Joe, and I apologize. I don't want to put you on the spot here, but is this a free thing that goes in a plugin? And if so, what's the business model, or how is it offered?
Yeah. So, certainly for developers, it can be inserted for free. The plugin is naturally a free plugin. And then we charge when you utilize the protections as they go into production. And so it's, there's free development license to get from our website. So really all you have to do is sign up on our alchemist.runsafesecurity.com. You can get there from runsafesecurity.com. You can download, the plugin. So you register with us and then download the plugin, and you're off to the races. So, it's a couple scripts that you end up running, and you gain access to our container, and then you can start to harden the binaries of your choice. And then with that, to your point, then long-term, it's a subscription model based on, the number of in-use instances of that code. And there's a couple tiers that we make it very easy, for development teams to be able to adopt, without much friction also. So really a self-service way to add security into your CI/CD pipeline, and naturally, working with JFrog with Artifactory is a good fit. And we make it very easy for people to get started with, a development license, so you can do that, and do whatever testing you might want to do with that.
Excellent. Mark, just to give our audience a sense of scale, so, Runtime Security's plugin is an Artifactory plugin. How many third-party plugins are there in Artifactory, Tay? Do you know?
Not something we keep statistics on. To be quite honest. Just trying to think if I have a better answer than that. It's not something that there's like hundreds of third-party plugins, but there's probably a couple tens.
Yeah, very cool. Are they a lot around security, or what other kind of functionality is kind of going into these plugins?
So I think the ones that are really from third-party vendors like RunSafe, they tend to often be security focused of one type or another. Bringing in additional metadata from another application so that it's visible to Artifactory users, acting on that metadata in different ways so that when you see that metadata, it does different things. This kind of tends to lend itself to the security environment, although we have seen people in like the testing field do some things. In-house, we provide, there's probably a bunch of plugins that are provided by customers and more from the user community side of things as opposed to the third-party vendor side. And those kind of have a much more varied behavior. There's about 100 of those that do everything from, bringing in new cleanup rules to, different ways of behaving with other external resources that people may have to deal with to, other metadata type rules.
Excellent stuff, man. It's good stuff. So, Joe, plans, how do you build on this? What's the plan? More functionality or?
Yeah, I mean, there's one of the things that was great about working with JFrog is there's, obviously there's so many users, there's thousands of customers and what have you. And part of the guidance we got from JFrog is, there are so many ways that developers can utilize Artifactory. And so we tried to make something that's, generally available for, the flexibility of your own particular, workflows. But I'm sure as we go forward, there may be, workflows that we learn from, and we may want to make some modifications to it. So we're committed to the plugin to work, throughout. I think it's generally available for everybody and should be applicable, but there may be nuances that we pick up along the way, given all the different ways people are using Artifactory that, we'll stay committed to, making those modifications and things like that. We naturally, we find that people want to harden their containers, they want to harden their native binaries, and all the workflows that go into kind of determining how you're using Artifactory. It's going to be really fun for us to learn those different special use cases, and obviously some of the predominant ones that are most common. I think we're a perfect fit for those. Out of the gate, and we'll just kind of be mindful of any unique requirements that may come up over time. So. I think that's the plan. Cool. And our idea is to create memory protections of your code, so that you're protected at runtime, and protecting, workloads and applications and containers and all of that is, kind of right in our wheelhouse. So, one of the reasons we're grateful for being able to partner with JFrog is that we do think we have a pretty differentiated approach to security, and we're trying to make it very easy for people to adopt. And I'm grateful to be able to demonstrate that with JFrog with a simple integration.
Cool. Guys, we're about out of time. I want to thank you for coming on TechStrong TV and explaining to us about this new integration and plugin out of Artifactory for better security. Joe, best of luck with runtime security. Keep up the great work. Mark, what can we say about JFrog that we haven't already, man? Good stuff from Shlomi to Fred to Love and everyone on down. Give them our regards, and we'll have you guys on again soon, I hope. Okay? All right. This is Alan Schimmel. Thank you. This is Alan Schimmel for TechStrong TV. We're going to be right back with our next guest. Our Something Old session for today, again, comes from TechStrong.com, which is now about a month and a half away. in the rearview mirror. But this is one we haven't shown. It's Matt Buckner of Flux 7. Matt does a great case study on 2 different customers of Flux 7 who took 2 very different journeys or paths to container strategy and deployment. I'm going to let Matt tell you all about it. I think it's a great session you'll enjoy.
Hi everyone, and thank you for joining us. Today I will be telling you about the journey of 2 different customers that are using containers in AWS. My name is Matt Buckner and I am the lead solution architect at Flux 7. Flux 7 is an entity data company. We are an AWS premier consulting partner, and you can see here our competencies. We are known for migration, DevOps, security, SaaS, well architected, and those are the skill sets that were required for the 2 consulting engagement that I'm going to present. The agenda is really straightforward. We're going to talk about customer 1, then customer 2. The steps for the 2 stories are the same. We're going to talk about the assessment. Where was the customer when we started working with them? Build cloud foundation. What is it that we had to do to build the right foundation for them to deploy their application to AWS? And build first version. What is the first version of the product that we implemented? And as we are an agile consulting firm, we always iterate. So how did we optimize, improve our initial setup? Then we'll talk about how you can repeat the successes. If you are a much larger organization, you need to be able to scale DevOps. So we are going to talk about how you can implement DevOps at scale. So actually for the 2 customer story here, this slide is common to both stories. Both of them needed to replace a legacy on-premise application with a custom build app. And when the solution architect team at Flux 7 does an assessment, we always present this slide with these 7 drivers. We ask them, what are the drivers that are the most important to you? What is driving this project, so that we can really understand the business requirements. And the one at the top here are the one that are selected in, I would say, 60 to 70% of the cases. It's about speeding time to market, eliminate downtime, reduce maintenance, increase scalability. And as you know, I have a security background, and I wish more customers were focusing on migrating to AWS to increase the security, but that's not the reason that are driving customers there in most of the cases. Cost optimization was not really a strong driver for ways to optimize their cost and be more efficient. So that is taking the forefront in the list of these top drivers. But what's interesting is you'll see these 2 customers are actually in a much better position today with the optimization and the migration than they were with what they had on premise. Even though it was not one of the original drivers for this project, the ability to use cloud native services and being able to scale in and out based on customer demand, that prepared them better for this COVID-19 event. So let's dive into customer 1. We started with them about 2 years ago, and when we started, the customer had no experience with AWS. They didn't have an AWS account at all. They never touched a Docker container, completely new to it. They were new to DevOps. Their development team was used to agile processes, but not their security team or infrastructure team. So as a consultant, we had to teach them about AWS, container, DevOps, Agile, the technology, and also the mindsets required to be successful there. We did our assessment, and it's important for us to understand their current state. So we asked, what are the technology and the vendors that you're using on premise? We found Dell, Oracle, Red Hat, VMware, Cisco. Those are the traditional vendors that you'll find in an on-premise American data center. But you'll see that they didn't carry much of them to AWS. So since they didn't have a strong relationship with AWS at that point of their journey, they wanted to be cloud agnostic. They wanted to start with AWS, but then be able to run their same application in other cloud providers. So we decided to run their containers on Red Hat Openshift, which is a flavor of Kubernetes by Red Hat. And that way, if we can run Openshift and the application on top of that in AWS, we could also do that in Azure or GCP if we wanted to. So we implemented this, but before we can even get there, as I mentioned, they didn't have an AWS account. So we actually have to create all these AWS accounts. And you can see here a generic AWS account architecture. You have a master billing account, an audit account. You separate your workloads in different accounts for non-prod and production. And you have a sandbox account where you can innovate and experiment. Then you need to establish the network connectivity between all these networks. And actually, if you have a PCI environment, you'll want to create a separate set of accounts to reduce the risk on these sensitive workloads and also reduce the scope of the PCI audit. So a lot of people are starting in AWS think that they'll just need one AWS account, but they quickly realize that they need many more. You quickly end up with 10, 15, 50, sometimes hundreds of AWS accounts. And when it's all said and done, it kind of looks like this. When you have enabled all the AWS services that establish the foundation for your workload. So all these icons here are for services that you have to enable. And there is not even the application there yet. It's just the security baseline. Control Tower, AWS Organization, AWS IAM, AWS ISO, CloudTrail, Security Head, AWS Config Guardian. Those are all different set of AWS security services that you have to enable when you when you create a new AWS account. And you may think that it should be all enabled by default to make your AWS account secure, but they are not enabled, and you have to enable them. And they cost some money. It's probably the reason they're not enabled by default. But it's really important to find a way to create AWS accounts with a consistent security baseline and do this in an automated way, because you're going to create many AWS accounts. So at Flux 7, we've done it so many times that we became more and more efficient at it. And when I joined Flux 7 about 3 years ago, it would take us 2 or 3 months to build something like this. And now we got it down to a week because we have all the automation and the training in place. So now that we have this good, solid foundation, we can deploy the environment to run the application. And what you see here is the infrastructure architecture using Openshift. So the application was just an API-based microservice application. Customers and partners came in through the API gateway, reached out the application on the Openshift cluster, and you have an Ansible control here that is used to provision this cluster and a database here. So that could look simple to you, but you need to understand that it is replicated many times. They have different environments. Each of these environments are in a different VPC. They have the non-prod and the prod account, and they also have multiple availability zones so that their application and their infrastructure is resilient. So this setup here is deployed many times in their AWS accounts. There was one requirement from the customer leadership is that they obviously wanted everything very quickly, right? And we were able to deploy this in a record time because we used the AWS Quick Start for Openshift. So if you're starting something new in AWS, think of checking if there's a quick start for the technology you're looking for, because that could really help you instead of starting everything from scratch. We carefully looked at the quick start and thought that it was a great starting point. There were some limitations and we were aware of them. It was at the time not designed to scale up and down the way we wanted. And I think that's something we can expect from a quick start. Is a good starting point is not meant to be the final stage, right? But my advice is make a good use of the quick starts. They are good quality and they can speed up your deployment to AWS. So at this point, we are going in production and customers start using the application, and we were able to see the business impact of what we've done in AWS. We were able to drive more innovation, better security, actually better sales. They were able to retire a lot of virtual machines in their on-premise data center, and that free up a lot of time for their infrastructure and security team. And I think what's really cool is this 100% uptime, because they were always struggling with uptime on-premise, and they were able to reach 100% in AWS because we had the resiliency built in, the multiple availability zones. All these things contributed to 100% uptime. So at this point, we have a customer that is, very confident in their relationship with AWS. And as I mentioned at the beginning, the goal was to be cloud agnostic. And I really like this joke with the horses here. And I'm not going to go into the dead horses here. I'm going to simplify the story. But basically what we have here is the customer happily riding their single horse, which is AWS. And the plan was that they'll get a second horse down the road. But as you can imagine, riding on two horses is a lot more difficult than riding on a single horse. And I think that translates into cloud. I think it's a misconception to think that because AWS, you'll be having an easy time in Azure. Things are different in all these cloud providers. It's not just about the names being different for similar services, but there are subtle differences. Network in AWS, network in GCP, network in Azure is done in a different way. And if you expect things to work in one way, for example, hybrid DNS is working one way in AWS, well, when it's time to do this in Azure, you'll find out that it has to be done in a different way. So the customer, given that they were very confident with their relationship in AWS, they didn't feel a strong need anymore to be cloud agnostic. So they decided to ride a single horse and continue their journey there. So that changed our business requirements, right? We had selected Openshift because we wanted to be cloud agnostic, and now that was not needed anymore. So we changed our design and we migrated from Openshift to EKS, which is the Kubernetes managed service by AWS. This migration, since they are both Kubernetes, was fairly straightforward. And there were some nice features that we missed from the Openshift platform, to be honest. But I think what pushed us to make this change is that it's a lot simpler. There's a lot less EC2 instances to manage. We push some of that complexity to AWS, and they provide us a service. We went from T's architecture to T's one. And as you see, it's a lot cleaner, it's a lot simpler. And again, think about everything here is replicated multiple times to production and production, multiple environments, multiple AZs. So a single box change here, 10, 20 EC2 instances that you don't have to manage anymore. You don't have to patch, you don't have to maintain, you don't have to monitor. It really simplifies a lot the workload for the customer. So, yeah, that's it for the first customer journey. So if I can summarize, they started with Openshift, we built a cloud foundation for them, and then migrated to EKS. The second customer journey is quite different, very different kind of customer. The first one was a legacy IT shop. The second one is a very mature development team, and they are also responsible for the operation of the application. As we did the assessment, we look at their AWS accounts that they already had and found that they have kind of overgrown their AWS account. Their VPC was running out of IP addresses, which can be devastating if your application needs to scale. And we actually talked to different groups in their company, and they had a Center of Excellence, or COE, that was providing a landing zone for them, and they could migrate to it. And we helped them make that transition from their legacy AWS account to the one provided by the COE. So that's one of the first changes we had to make to be successful and allow them to scale and be more secure. The second finding that was really interesting was that each development team was originally given the freedom to choose any technology they wanted. So the first team decided they go with CloudFormation, ECS, and GoCD. Obviously, the second team, they decided a complete different set of tools. They went with Terraform and Kubernetes, and they didn't have any CI/CD tool. They were just deploying with command lines. So the customer realized that that does not scale very well, because you're going to deploy your application to production, and eventually it's used more and more, and you'll face some kind of production issue, and you're going to solve it and learn from it. The problem is that the learning from the first team here was not applicable to the second team, because they were using a completely different tech stack. And vice versa, any issue faced, any learning from team 2 will not apply to team 1. So at that point, we decided that it would make sense to standardize on one specific technology stack. And the decision was to go with CloudFormation, ECS, and GoCD. And in no way I'm saying that CloudFormation is better than Terraform, ECS is better than Kubernetes, but I think the most important is that it's important to standardize if you can, as opposed to using all sorts of different tools, right? So we took the application from Team 2 and we helped them to migrate it to CloudFormation, ECS, and GoCD. And we were successful with this and deploying this in the COE account. Then that application from Team 1, we then migrated that to the COE accounts as well. And so now that's 2 applications running on the new tech stack and the new AWS accounts. We also had a third team that came in and they were deploying a brand new product. And at that point, they didn't have to reinvent the wheel and choose a third technology stack. They just reused the one that was designed and approved, and the application could use it. So they save a lot of time. Now, if you want to build some kind of consistency across multiple applications, you need to build an application agnostic pipeline or release process. So you see here, may look complicated as a diagram to you, but I'll walk through it quickly, and I'll explain what's going on here. The idea is that developers commit code to GitHub, and you'll have a pipeline where the automation process will build the application. And in this case, the customer was using SonarQube to scan the application code. And then they will use JFrog Artifactory to pull any artifacts that they need to build the application. When the application is built, they can run some tests, they can scan it. So scanning here means scanning the containers, and we actually used Aquasec to do this. When the application is scanned and tested, we can push it to a registry. So there's two Amazon ECR that you see here and here. It's kind of unusual to have two registries, but that worked out well. Once you have the registry, the container image in the registry, then you can deploy to the dev environment. So the deployment goes like this. You can update the schema and the data in the database, RDS in this case, and then deploy the new container image on ECS. When that's done, you can test your application, and you may do that as many times as you need to. When you're happy with this, you can rinse and repeat, do this for the queue environment, do this for the staging environment, do this for the production environment. So the key here is that this pipeline is application agnostic, and if you find this diagram complex, in some way it shows that how much saving you could have by building one that is application agnostic, because you don't have to rebuild this for every application that you have. So I just want to leave you with a couple of takeaways from these two stories. The first one is that if you're listening to this presentation because you never really used containers and you are building applications that are deployed on virtual machines today or EC2 instances, you really need to think about why you're still doing this in 2020. Review your plan. There's a lot of benefits from using containers, scaling, it's immutable code, it's lightweight. There's a lot of benefits that you can gain from migrating to containers or serverless. The second takeaway is that once you're successful with your architecture and your processes, then share all this knowledge with the other teams from your company so that you can establish consistency across the different teams. That's really important. The third takeaway is that I'll advise you to not settle for what you have. You saw the customer ones, they started with Openshift, they migrated to EKS. The second customer had Kubernetes on EC2 instances, and they migrated to ECS. I think that we see a lot of these changes in the cloud today. There's 10 years ago, most IT shops would look at buying software licenses for 5 years to get the best discount. That doesn't make much sense anymore because the landscape and the business requirements are always changing. So your roadmap is much shorter in some way. So don't settle for what you have. Always review your plan and the decisions you made 6 months ago. Maybe the choice you made now are not the best, and you need to evolve and iterate. So now let's talk about how you can scale this. We talk about customer one and customer two. Customer one had a single team. Customer two had 3 teams or 3 apps. But larger organizations will have hundreds of applications, dozens of developer teams, and somehow they need to scale this, right? Training a large number of developers on cloud technology is a really long process. There's just a lot to learn, and not everyone will be thrilled or interested, or they may not have the time to learn all this. So I introduce to you the secret sauce. If you are from Texas, you know about Torchy's tacos. They are the best tacos in Texas. And it is the secret sauce for your tacos, not for the cloud. The secret sauce for the cloud is to look for common application patterns. If most large organizations, when we do an inventory of the application, we'll find a lot of three-tier Java applications, and maybe they'll use a different database backend behind the scene, but there's quite a bit of consistency in the application pattern. And if you find that, for example, you have 60% of Java apps or 60% of .NET apps, then you can use this to scale better. What you do is that you build a reference infrastructure and pipeline that is going to fit this common design application. And then you can make this available through a self-service portal. In most legacy IT, what happens is when you want to deploy something on-premise, you open a ticket, you request some hardware or a VM, then you need to get the credentials to go there and install your application. It's a lengthy process. Sometimes it can take months. And if you do this through self-service in the cloud, it can take you minutes. What the development team does is that they'll present it with a self-service portal. They need to provide the URL to their Git repository. They can provide a couple of information like the path to their health check for their application so that the infrastructure will know if the application is healthy or not. And then that gets deployed. So we implemented this, and here I'll show you a final architecture diagram. The idea is that everything you see here is deployed by this service catalog. So it gets a bit technical, but I'll go through it quickly. What happens is that the developers submit code for their application. And again, the developers add reference their application GitHub repo in the self-service portal. So now we know when a branch is created, and what we do is that we can create an ephemeral pipeline for this app and this branch. And we are going to build this application, deploy it, and the developers can see the result quickly. Developers are going to iterate and push new code in this branch until they're happy with the result. Every time, then we're going to build and deploy the app. And once they're happy with this, then they are going to merge the code in the master branch or development branch and delete this temporary branch. So this ephemeral pipeline is deleted when the branch is deleted. Now, once the code is merged, then we can build this, store the image in ECR, deploy to QA, deploy to a performance environment. You can run some integration and stress test, and then deploy to production. And that whole flow is abstracted from the developers. So they don't really need to learn all this cloud technology. And you can make this available. In this case, we did this with Service Catalog, which is an AWS service, but we've done this with ServiceNow as well. There's a very nice integration between ServiceNow and Terraform Enterprise. And if you're an entity customer, you could get this through Entity Nucleus as well. So I say that by building this as a self-service, this is making the easy way the right way. Now, we made this really easy for the developers to use something that is consistent. If the security team wants to add a new security tool to this pipeline, let's say the team decide that they want to do a static and dynamic analysis of the application code. They selected white hat security to do this. They can plug this in the pipeline, and now all development teams can use this. And the development team didn't have to make a choice on this, and they'll get result from the white hat security dashboard that inform them of the findings. But the idea is that there is consistency and efficiency using these pipelines that are created from a self-service portal. That's all I had to share today. I really hope that you learn from this presentation, and I hope that you will enjoy this conference. Thank you so much for listening, and you can reach out to us on Slack, and you see my contact information here as well. Thank you.
Hope you enjoyed Matt's presentation from TechStrong.com. It's now that time where I give you our headlines around the MediaOps site, DevOps.com, Container Journal, Security Boulevard. As usual, these are just some headlines of some articles I think I found interesting, but you should go check them out yourself. Over on DevOps.com for today, we have DevOps was supposed to kill developer jobs, and here's why it didn't. Well, truth be told, it was going to kill QA jobs and security jobs and architect jobs. And we were just going to automate people out of existence, and here comes Star Trek. But that's not the way it works usually, and it didn't work out that way here either. But read the article, check it out. Next, jump over the hidden barriers to digital transformation. Yeah, sometimes those hidden barriers will trip you up. But some good gotchas in this article. Check them out if at all you're thinking or involved in a transformation effort. Next, we have an article on OverOps, and they're partnering with GitLab to analyze code earlier. And I think this is really one of the big areas that we're seeing. And, you know, I spoke earlier about the JFrog run safe security integration. By plugging in, by plugging into these repos, we're able to provide functionality to developers and DevOps in a further left. And one of the big functionalities are analyzing code, testing code, code search. SourceGraph company we had on a couple weeks ago does that. So I think we're going to see more and more of that kind of those kinds of partnerships and functionality. Over on Container Journal, we have a little bit more of GitLab news in the news today. GitLab offers CI/CD platforms as hardened container images. And this will, of course, have relevance in the government market. But for anyone who is working within a Kubernetes infrastructure, CI/CD is the way you're deploying. This is good news. And GitLab's making it easy for you to do that. Read the article. And then we have startup launches container scanning service. I saw this one, and I got to be honest with you. I was at first said whoopee-doo, BFD. We need another container scanning service. But this one is, there are some specialties. Let's see what sticks from it. But read the article and check it out. And then over in Security Boulevard, we have Evil Corp's wasted locker demanding millions of dollars for decryption. Ransomware. It doesn't go away. It amazes me. It's still here. And then, and not only still here, but growing. But read the article. And then we have connected cars. Smart homes remain targets. Both connected cars and smart homes remain targets. And get serious about IoT security and do something here, it's going to be that way, and it's going to get more and more serious. Anyway, that's our news for today. On that note, I'm going to send things over to Charlene O'Hanlon, our managing editor. Charlene has a interview with the CEO of Versec today, Dave Furneaux, as well as a preview of today's webinars and tomorrow's webinars on MediaOps. There's some good ones. You can still register. So Charlene, take it away.
This is Digital Anarchist.
Hey, everybody. Welcome back to TechStrong TV. I'm Charlene O'Hanlon, managing editor at MediaOps, and I'm here now with Dave Furneaux, who is the new CEO of a company called Versec. Dave, thanks so much for taking the time and talking with me. Appreciate it.
Happy to be here. Yeah.
Awesome. Tell me a little bit about Versec.
So Versec was a company that I actually got involved with at the very beginning, which was 2014, 2015 timeframe. And we got together as a group of technologists and entrepreneurs because we wanted to solve the application security problem in a new and really fundamental way. Security, of course, is a big issue. Cybersecurity is a massive problem in the world. And we just didn't think that the applications that run our world, they run our governments, they run our hospitals, they run our military, that they were being protected properly. And so we launched this company to do just that.
So obviously application security is a huge issue, especially now with so many folks who are working from home, and the security issues that obviously that entails, just so many people trying to access the network at once, and the cloud-based applications, the security attached to that. So I imagine you guys have a lot on your plate at the moment.
It's an amazing time. COVID-19 has been a huge crisis for all of us, a really challenging time. But in the cybersecurity field, the problem has manifested itself in more cyber attacks and more challenges. And in our industry, we call it attack surface areas. So when you start working remotely and putting stress on applications, it increases a attack surface area that an attacker can go after. So yeah, we've seen an uptick in momentum and in the business itself.
So how does your technology work, and at what point in the application process is it ingrained? Is it more in the development process, or at what point, and is it from a DevOps perspective, if you will, are we looking into looking more of the shift left idea of adding security at the application development process?
So our technology is, the product is an end-to-end security product. So It does start on the shift left or the dev side, and then it moves to the security operation side as well. So in the CI/CD pipeline, when the developer is developing, our product is used to provide much deeper visibility and much broader visibility into the security issues of that application. And then we provide remediation or virtual patching and even compensating controls that allow a developer to, as the application comes through development into runtime, into operation, be able to have continuity from a security perspective as well. Then our product on the security operations side is deployed in runtime, and it protects the application from the inside out, so that as the application is instructing and it's working, we're able to secure it in real time.
Gotcha. So it's not just a development security offering, but it's a kind of a post-development security offering as well. That's really, really kind of interesting. So are organizations deploying these, are they kind of, what am I trying to say? Are they attached via APIs, or how are they kind of connected to the security framework that organizations have?
So our product is the first product in the world that integrates security from the inside out. So we took a radically different view and said, the world secures by creating perimeters, creating firewalls, and different types of antivirus rules and techniques. And we said, let's integrate security into the application itself. So we instrument the application with a very lightweight probe, and we're able to understand as a result of that, given where we instrument the probe, we can see so much more about what's going on in the development of the application or in the running of one.
Okay. All right. That makes a whole lot of sense. So what are you guys seeing in the market these days? Are companies kind of moving toward the shift left idea of adding security earlier in the development pipeline and at runtime as your organization or your technology does?
Yeah, there's a big trend towards integrating and creating more harmony or more communication between the developers and the owners of the applications when they're operating. From a security point of view, I think there's a huge push to provide stronger application security level solutions because the attack surface areas and the importance of applications are skyrocketing. So it's a big trend.
So I remember before the world caught on fire, and we were at the RSA conference, and DevSecOps was a huge topic for a lot of not just speakers and presentations, but just even on the show floor. Everybody was talking. Well, not everybody, but a lot of people were talking about DevSecOps, and it really seemed to be gaining traction finally. So do you see that your technology is kind of one of those kind of I don't want to say happy accidents, but the timing of your technology is kind of in line with where the market is headed?
I think that's true because the market evolves based on attack landscapes and new types of attacks. And what we've seen in the last 3 years is that the traditional technologies that were deployed are not working well enough. Whether it's Verizon's recent report or FireEye's or MITRE's attack report, everyone is seeing that the attacks are getting deeper and the existing products are not protecting them well enough or providing enough visibility, including pen testing and advanced technologies around trying to understand where your vulnerabilities are. They're just operating at a level that's too abstracted from where the attackers are today.
So from a networking perspective, also, is your technology kind of helping in cases such as, I don't know, like edge computing or, even accommodating like IoT devices and other devices on the network? Where does your technology stand in relation to those things?
So our technology started with our passion as a team was coming together around securing the workload. So really protecting the applications that run our customers' businesses. But as you evolve that thinking, and as we've evolved that thinking from the workload may reside on the edge. And so there's this new edge coming. And so we see that our ability to protect at the edge is just an extension of our existing product. So we do that. When it comes to IoT, that's a different form factor. And because we're integrated so deeply close to the microprocessor, it's a different architecture than server workload. And so that's on our roadmap for something we'll do in the future.
Excellent. Yeah, I'm hearing a lot from organizations who are actually looking more at edge computing as kind of a way to kind of help balance the load, if you will, and extend their networks beyond, just their standard networking environments. So yeah, there's definitely a lot of movement in that space. So where do you see you guys, your technology, as opposed to other organizations, other security technologies in the market right now as it pertains to edge computing? Are you guys kind of ahead, or is the market fairly nascent, and then we'll see maybe in a year or so how things kind of fall out. But where do you guys see yourselves?
I think that edge computing and edge architectures have been evolving for a number of years. They're starting to get into early deployments. Security is really an important part of that. Where we see ourselves is we're doing the same thing we're doing in a traditional enterprise deployment, which is we're securing from the inside out. So as that application goes to the edge, we're still protecting that application at a deeper, broader level and more simply than the existing products. What's happening with most of the security companies that are looking at the edge is they're looking at perimeter deployments or rules-based deployments or behavioral deployments. And we're a deterministic solution that sits on the inside. So our benefits that we give in a non-edge world are extended to the edge world. That's all.
Okay. Yeah. All right, great. So where do you guys see yourselves and your technology moving forward?
Well, it's a really big market, and we're having a good time deploying and solving customers' problems. We're looking at growing. We got our start in aerospace and defense and government type customers. And now we're starting to move into other types of enterprises like hospitals, financial institutions, utilities. So it's pretty diverse. We just sold our first customer in Africa. Last month, we sold our first customer in India. So we've just hired our first team member in Dubai. So it's amazing to see the international flavor of customers that are interested in this type of security. It's neat.
That's great. That's great. That's great. Well, I wish you guys all the luck in the world. I think it's a great technology, and especially in the DevOps realm, as more organizations are looking to shift left, it's great to hear that there's yet another technology on the market that's going to help them do that. So, Dave, thank you very much for your time and walking me through all the aspects of your company and your company's technology. And I wish you the best.
Sure. Thank you.
Okay.
All right. Take care.
All right. Thank you. All right, everybody, please stick around. We've got lots more TechStrong TV coming up, so stay tuned.
Disruption is occurring across every aspect of IT. Open source, cloud services, DevOps, and cloud-native software architectures are democratizing IT and radically transforming how business is done. The old ways of creating software and doing IT are being replaced with agile, flexible, faster, and cheaper methods, benefiting vendors and users alike. Accelerated Strategies Group is out to democratize access of industry expertise and knowledge. We use our expertise and experience to offer insightful, intelligent, useful information in a variety of formats relevant to the IT community: digital events, videos, reports, assessments, workshops, and implementation projects with tech vendors, IT organizations, and business leaders. We widely and openly share our work products, often for free. Analyst reports these days aren't worth more than a graph or chart that tells a story or illustrates a market trend. We work with developers, DevOps teams, cloud architects, security engineers, and transformation leaders most every day, creating and implementing transformational strategies and technologies. We're not just thinkers, we're also doers.
Hey everybody, welcome back to TechStrong TV. I am Charlene O'Hanlon, Managing Editor at MediaOps, and I'm here on this fine Monday with a webinar preview for you for the week. So without further ado, let's dive right into some of the webinars that we have coming up for you. The first one that I want to talk about is happening tomorrow, Tuesday at 3 p.m. Eastern. It's called Understanding the True Cloud and Kubernetes Costs of SaaS Tenants at Relativity. This one is actually sponsored by Harness, and it is a case study of sorts. Relativity is one of their customers, and they were looking to increase their deployment velocity and reduce their cloud spend as part of their cloud migration to Windows Azure. And so the fine folks at Harness helped them out in doing so, and both companies are here to talk about how that went and what role Kubernetes actually played in helping Relativity make their stated goals of reducing cloud spend and increasing their deployment velocity. So definitely worth checking out if you are interested in what Kubernetes is doing on the scene to help in cloud spend and deployment velocity. So check it out. Our second one is happening Wednesday at 1 p.m. This one is actually on Security Boulevard. It's called There's an Open Bullet Attack Config for Your Site. What should you do? This one is sponsored by Sequence Security. And during the webinar, they're going to be discussing how companies can uncover the existence of an attack config and how Sequence's open bullet offering can actually be used to prevent such attacks. So we all know that security is a huge top of mind issue for many organizations these days, especially in this new work from home environment. So anything that will help an organization keep its networks safe and secure for all involved, both employees, third parties, and end user customers, I'm sure will be of great interest to a lot of you. So please tune in for that one. Again, that one is happening Wednesday at 1 p.m. Eastern on Security Boulevard. Our final webinar that I want to talk to you about today is called Data Management for Multi-Cloud. This one is also happening Wednesday, but this one is at 3 p.m. and it's happening on DevOps.com. This one is sponsored by Red Hat and Cockroach Labs. And they're going to discuss how Cockroach's cloud-native SQL database, distributed SQL database running on Openshift can help organizations modernize their infrastructure to achieve both efficiency and scale. So definitely a conversation that a lot of organizations are having these days as they shift to the cloud, as they look to reduce the latency, increase performance. And you're going to learn in this webinar how, if you're looking to go cloud native with your deployment and development and deployment efforts, and are considering different options, check this one out. This is going to be a really interesting webinar, so I highly recommend it. And that is all that I have for this edition of the webinars preview. Tune in tomorrow. We've got more webinars coming up that I want to tell you about. But until then, folks, please stay safe.
All righty. Good stuff, Charlene. Thanks very much. Up next, after Charlene, it's usually the Analyst Corner with Mitch, and that's where we're headed now, where Mitch has fellow Accelerated Strategies Group analyst Bob Resselman. And Bob's a Renaissance man, right? He does the roll Bobs, he does our comics, The Adventures of Microservice, and now we have a new one called Network Man and more in the works, as well as a collected book on his essays on automation and jobs. Frequent contributor to DevOps.com as well as other sites. Bob really is a treasure. Him and Mitch are on today. Let's throw things over to them now.
This is Digital Anarchist.
I'm joined by Bob Resselman, who is a multifaceted person. One of the things he does is he works as an analyst with Accelerated Strategies Group. He's got a deep background in a lot of different things. And one of the things we're going to touch on is about learning and communication, but through some different means. Great to be talking to you, Bob. Thanks for taking some time to join us.
Oh, thanks for having me on again.
Always love it. I say this every time. I love talking with you because it's just very fascinating and interesting, and I learn a lot. Plus, our conversations kind of go some interesting places, which I know this one will too, because we're going to talk about comics. Now, I set that up.
Graphic novels, comics, eye candy. Yeah.
Exactly what I grew up on and I still love today. So let's step back for a minute. We're going to talk about different ways of communicating. I mean, you and I are bombarded by reports and emails and websites and articles and you name it. There's lots of ways of consuming information. So I think we're always looking for, is there a better way? Is there a more effective way? Maybe not for everything, for certain kinds of information. And that's one of the reasons why I know you've explored this graphic novel comic idea. Talk a little bit about why you pursued that path as a way for communicating kind of technical information.
I like comics. I like working with artists. I like making things. Let me go back. I need to show the comic so we all know what we're talking about.
Oh, okay, great. Let's talk about it.
It's coming in my camera. Can you see it?
It's sideways. There you go.
My camera's going berserk. Wait, it's out of control. There it is.
The Adventures of Network
Man and Subnet. Crisis in the Control Plane. There you go.
Oh my gosh.
Is that great? Huh?
That is awesome.
Love it. Yeah. Crisis in the Control Plane. Right.
Now that's the banner, the panel intro to your whole.
The panel intro. There, go out to digitalanarchist.com and it's right there. I think it's a featured comic. We also have The Adventures of Microservice.
We do.
So there's a number of things we can talk about. One is, I do like making comics. This isn't just me making a comic. When you get to this level of publication, it requires a lot of artists and a lot of storyline and a lot of stuff. And they're not easy to make. And so we have me and we have two other artists who are making the comic, and I contribute graphically and I write the storyline. And there's also another artist named Axel who does the line, and there's another artist named Jim who does the coloring. And we all work to make this comic happen every week. what's interesting to me with regard to software technology is how closely the process of making a comic book maps to the process of making software.
Okay.
Right? Because the expense factor is almost identical. What do I mean by that? Well, let's talk about comics and then we'll talk about software. When you're making a comic, the end product is the actual panel, the colored panel with some dialogue in it. All right, let me go here. Can't wait. Let's see if this, wait, come back. Okay, so here it is. This is the end product of a workflow. That's, you can see there's dialogue and there's color and there's all that stuff. That doesn't happen magically. And what happens is, first of all, we have to have an idea, a specification for the episode. And what I do is I write that out. I write it out and I say, in this episode, here are the characters, and I can share the dialogue. It's actually Hollywood script dialogue. Here's what the scene looks like. Here's the placement of the characters in the scene. Here's what they're doing. And we take that idea, and then what happens is it goes to rough drawing. And then from rough drawing, I talk about it with the artist. Then it goes from rough drawing to inking. And inking is where they put the lines in and all that stuff. Mm-hmm. Once inking is approved, then it goes to color. And then after color is done and approved, then it goes to dialogue and balloons. Now, the reason we do this multi-phase approach is that each phase is more expensive than the phase before it. Sound familiar? Mm-hmm. Yes. Mm-hmm. So when you're making code, what you want to do is you want to have a pretty clear idea of what you're supposed to code. And then pretty much you'll do like a mock-up. And I'm not a UI programmer. I do more server-side work. But you'll have some sort of mock demonstration of what the code will do. And then everybody likes what the code will do, the behavior, and then you move it through the deployment line. What becomes interesting is that this indeed maps very directly to software development. Now, what is really interesting is that people have been making comic books for 60 years. They've been making animation for close to 100 years now. And that process is well known. And it's also pretty predictable. So when people go out and make a cartoon, or in the early days of making a mini, they weren't rolling the dice and saying, do I hope this cartoon will come out the way I started it to do? There's a pretty clear idea that what they want is what they're going to get. Now, will people buy it? Will people use it? That's another story. Mm-hmm. Completely. But the production process is well known. The joke in my head, and I have many jokes in my head, is that, gee, we've had a production process like this in play for like 100 years. And the cartoon, comic book, even the movie people are pretty good at getting what they want, right? But how come we can't pull this off in software, right? More software projects fail than, not more, but let's say many software projects fail.
It's not certainly not unheard of.
Not unheard of. Right. And how many comic books fail? Well, comic books can fail that they're not bought. I get that. Okay, I'll give you that one. But the actual production process, that's, if you do, you make the cookies, you'll get the cookies. Follow the recipe. Yeah. And that's always been interesting to me. That, gee, there's this whole other industry over here that's pretty successful at creating what you can call abstract realizations, movies, comic book people. And there's this other industry out here that's been struggling forever with it. Mm-hmm. Isn't that strange?
Well, no, I'm assuming, well, I've read your comics, so I know the answer to the question, but you're not just communicating technical information or educating people with this. You're also telling a story. I mean, ultimately, that's what matters, right? The Adventures in Network, man, there definitely was a story, right? That, the protagonist was under the throes of an evil intent, and she, the evil intent, you can read the comic, had her way with the protagonist, and he has a choice of having the development cycle succeed or fail. And in the end, something happens, and something else happens. There you go. I'm not going to give it away. I want people to go read the comic. You've got us now. Sitting on the edge of our seat now, Bob.
Yeah. The other thing is, I've come to realize I have a love-hate relationship with this software industry. I mean, there's nothing else I'd rather be doing. It's been very good to me, like baseball, like that joke from Saturday Night Live. Software has been very, very good to me. But sometimes people are just walking around like chickens with their heads off or spinning or doing stuff I don't quite understand and wasting a lot of money along the way. Again, there's always something to be said. As companies get larger, they tend to get more difficult to manage, and conformity is necessary. You can't have in a company like somebody like IBM with 130,000 people without some degree of conformity along the way. Mm-hmm. I get that. But then again, IBM's not having their greatest year this year, where smaller companies tend to be able to react and to act and react in a more efficient manner.
I think a lot of companies are not having their best year, but that's a whole nother topic.
Yeah. So doing the comic gives me a way to talk about these things, some of them achievements and these follies in a way that doesn't call somebody's kid ugly. Can't call your baby's ugly. Oh no.
The proverbial. So I'm really curious, you do this with a purpose, right? You enjoy it as well, but mm-hmm. what are your hopes that someone will gain from this? Is this kind of a break from the monotony or the chaos of the day, and let me just take something fun and consume it and kind of get a good perspective on things? Is it more, oh no, there's some actually really kind of neat concepts in here? What's your hopes that come across?
There are a number of neat concepts. So I need to talk for about 5 minutes about the setup poster. Okay, I'm going to talk about the setup poster. All you people listening at home, I'm now talking about the setup poster. So I used to work for one of the largest computer manufacturers on the planet, which no longer exists. Another story. Third largest computer manufacturer.
There are many of those too.
Yeah, many of those too. Yeah. Do you know that in 1946, I have to go back and get the date. Don't hold me on the date. But there are like 248 auto manufacturers in the United States.
Oh, yeah.
There used to be hundreds. And now there's 3, maybe 4, and it's global. Same dynamic in the software manufacturing industry. Anyway, and so the software manufacturer, who was in the Midwest, had a problem, and the problem was their call rate. And the call rate, when you bought a computer mail order from this computer manufacturer, you were guaranteed service for the rest of your life. And all you had to do is call this 1-800 number, and they'd teach you anything you need to know. And when you went into the call center, and this was large, hundreds of people's job was to answer this phone, answering technical questions. And there was a big neon sign on the end of the room, big room, football field side room, that had how many calls were active at any given moment. And they looked at this and said, this is costing us a lot of money. And they go, yeah, this is costing us a lot of money. So the big computer company went out and they said, look, we've got to bring the call rate down. And so we're going to actually create a usability department to address these issues. And they did. And so I was fortunate to become attached to the usability department, where I hung out with the PhD guys and guys and girls. Actually, there were a lot of women in that department. And we did formal usability studies of how people behaved around certain things, i.e. buying a computer, i.e. setting up a computer, and all that stuff. So the first thing we found is that through quantitative analysis, there was a big room with video cameras and state-of-the-art stuff, is that most calls happened within, this wasn't part of the usability study, it was part of the statistical analysis of the call logs, was that most people made a call to the call center within 30 minutes of buying a computer. Mm-hmm. That's what they did. They did a 30-minute call. And so we said, gee, if we could either eliminate that call or get it down to at least they did in a long time, that would be great. And so we did. We found out why was this call happening within 30 minutes? And the reason the call was happening in 30 minutes is because the manuals had a lot of challenges. They were text-based. People had to read in order to do stuff. And what we found is that people didn't read. What we did find is that if there was a picture on the page, people stopped and looked at the picture. Mm-hmm. So that was just the tell right there. So we said, gee, more pictures, less text. That was the first thing we did. The second thing we did is they said, okay, we get that they don't like to read. So we're going to put a poster right at the top. So the first experience with the box, which you buy it and it came in a box, is you open it and there's a poster that told you how to set up the machine. And the poster was color coded. In other words, you could probably give this to anybody And if they could have had some sort of ability to follow pictures, they could set it up. And if you look at the evolution of help manuals over the last 50 years, and particularly now that manufacturing has become international, it costs a lot of money to create multilingual manuals, even online. So it's easier just to make everything pictures and numbers. Mm-hmm. If you can follow it. And that's been the trend.
Yeah, with everything now, consumer electronics equipment,
everything. Everything's pictures or videos, pictures or videos.
IKEA.
IKEA, there you go, IKEA. And so that's what we did. And it was called the setup poster. So what I've come to understand is that people do read, and I can go into a lot of theory about what the relationship between text and images are. And I do a whole presentation on that and why you want to use text and why you want to use images and when you don't want to use either. So, but what we've discovered is people like pictures. We didn't know this, right? like the Sports Illustrated swimsuit issue isn't the most popular issue every year. We didn't know this, right? Yeah, it just sort of works that way.
To figure out some things, right?
Yeah, it just sort of works that way. So the reason I do the comic is I like doing comics. I like the creative satisfaction that goes with it. I like being able to make those pictures, but I also think that companies might want to start looking at using that media or medium as a way to start communicating very complex technical ideas. I think more than they can. And the problem, people say, well, if it's a comic, how are we going to take this seriously? And they're right. So the other thing to realize is that this genre of, we'll call documentation, there's a spectrum to it. And at the extreme end, you have, you have this end over here. You have what we call the graphic novel. Just like one step, you could make a movie off a graphic novel. As a matter of fact, The Road to Perdition started as a graphic novel before it was made a movie by Tom Hanks.
That's right.
Over here. And then over here, you have we can call it the cartoonies, like the SpongeBobs, right? And SpongeBob really does it. SpongeBob you might want to use as a PSA to, look both ways before you cross the street because kids want to see that. But over here, you want to go more towards the graphic novel, which has more credibility as an authentic technical source, but start communicating information that way. That's just something to think about. And I think that it gets it, it also creates market distinction. MetLife did not buy peanuts haphazardly. Mm-hmm. They spent a lot of money on that, but they understood what they were going for. Have I answered your question yet?
You have. And you know what? A connection I hadn't made before, but there's a lot of validation of what you're saying. So some good examples are infographics, right? Mm-hmm. How popular is that? We don't read, but we can visually. There's text and numbers on it. Doodle software. How many people are doing kind of doodling as that graphical image of taking notes or communicating concepts? And there's even slideware programs that generate all doodle graphics or kind of cartoonish, if you will, style graphics. So it's another medium, just like there's watercolor and oil. There are different mediums for communicating information with different benefits and strengths. Let's do this. I'd love to whet everybody's appetite just a bit with a little bit of the story. Can you give us maybe the setup on the story?
On the Adventures of Network Man?
Yes.
Okay, the Adventures of Network Man. I'm doing this from memory because I have a lot of stories going on, believe it or not.
Yeah, you got to step all the way back.
So there is a company. There is a fictitious company. And the fictitious company is called Nile River Web Services. Mm-hmm. And Nile River Web Services is having their yearly conference called Explore. Nile River Web Services is having the Explore conference. And at the conference, one of the technical evangelists, whose name is Jerry Bierman, debuts a product called H8S. And H8S is guaranteed not guaranteed, but has demonstrated that it can improve the performance of your artifacts over Nile River Web Services by 500%. Big numbers, right? Big numbers. And so H8S, which is created by a company called Hackcelerate, right? The company is called Hackcelerate, creates H8S, and they allow people to download it for free. And let's just say the evil villain of the series of this issue is called Havoc. And Havoc notices the downloads are going through the roof. And his response to this event is, they'll download anything. Mm-hmm. And I'll leave it at that. Okay. Now, I've gone ahead a couple issues because we only release one issue a week. It's 12 issues. You can, if you want to read a full issue, go read The Adventures of Network Man and Monolithra. So anyway, there's the setup, right? There's the setup. They'll download anything.
Excellent. And this is on digitalanarchist.com.
Yes, digitalanarchist.com, yes.
And the other graphic novel comic you mentioned,
Network Man,
is on
The Adventures of Microservice. Now, it's actually moved over to digitalanarchist.com.
Oh, it is there too. Okay,
it's
great.
There too, yes.
I've been reading it on Security Boulevard.
Yes, it's going to be in both places now. It's become very popular. Not so unsurprisingly, it's become very popular, and so it's going. The publisher's moving it over to 2 properties now because they're just so thrilled. They want the world to have more of this.
So there are some, not to get into the kind of the business angle of this, but there are some like sponsorships behind this too.
Yeah,
right?
yeah, sure.
Because it is effective.
Yeah, we have. Yeah, Deploy Hub sponsored the Adventures of Microservice, and current some episodes are now being sponsored by Datadog. They get it, and so they're sponsoring. We have some others lined up. Yeah, I mean, it's it's good karma. It's good karma.
I almost see by both of their logos are very graphical.
Yes.
Cartoonish.
Yes, they're definitely into it. It seems. Yes. Mm-hmm. So that's good.
You would never accept this analogy, so I know that going in. But I have an idea for you for your next comic. Maybe you can do it on some here in the future. I'd love to see you appearing in comic form somewhere at the front of it, sort of like Stan Lee did during his, at the front end of the cover page of the Spider-Man, the start page.
Right. Yes. Right. Right. And my character would be, I told you so. Right.
So I knew you wouldn't accept me saying you're the Stan Lee of this, but it'd be great right. Nobody could meet that.
Right. I would be my superhero. I would be, I told you so. And my secret power would be, I can annoy anybody.
Annoyance man. I told you so.
I told you so. Yeah.
Well, good. So anything else we should know about before folks?
No, just go out, get the comic. There's another one planned too. Read it, tell your friends, tell your in-laws, you'll influence people and impress people. Yeah, just read it. It's fun. And any response, feel free, because there is a way you can respond to review. Again, Microservice is fully published, so feel free to go out there and write a review, a glowing review. If you write a bad review, you will hurt my feelings.
If you like it, write a review. If you don't, contact me, right?
Right, contact me or don't contact me.
Don't.
Right, because that'll be another. I could see a superhero called I Have an Opinion. Right.
There'd be a lot of those.
I have an opinion, right? And his sidekick would be, and it matters, right?
Yeah, well, only occasionally showing up, but
only occasionally showing up, right? Soon come, yeah.
Well,
it's great. I'm happy. I'm just really happy we're doing it, and I think it's just a lot of fun. And supporting art is always a good thing to do.
It absolutely is. And I know this kind of medium also fosters a lot of conversation. People love to comment and provide feedback. Do you encourage them to reach out to you with any suggestions and ideas then? What's the best way to do that?
You can always write me at WrestleBob, RESELBOB @gmail. You can do that. Write me. I do answer my emails. I'm fastidious about answering my emails, so feel free to write me. What others? If people are interested, also, I do have for the people that are doing like serious technology, I do have a number of articles out there about about technical documentation, about how to create effective technical documentation in a way that matters. And I'm also exploring some new venues. I call it the insurance policy. The insurance policy, and now particularly with the rise of the API culture and the APIs being at the forefront of development, an API is only as good as its documentation, and keeping documentation accurate immediately is a challenge, and companies should be thinking about that at the beginning, not at the end.
Absolutely, yes.
And then also you have what we call localization issues too. How do you create technical documentation that can be localized immediately? That's an interesting problem.
Yeah, you have some great writing on that. Speaking of writing, I'm not going to let us end our discussion without mentioning your book.
Oh, yes.
You are an author of multiple books. Your most recent book is The Impact of Automation.
Yes.
Which you can get on the Accelerated Strategies site, which is accelst.com.
Yes, I can comment on that.
Yeah, let's tell us a little bit about that.
The impact, it's not the impact of automation. It's really, it's essays about artificial intelligence and thinking machines on social behavior. It's not about how to write AI. There's other people doing how to write AI, and they're doing a much better job of it. But I've been concerned about what all this means in the big picture for my children, my grandchildren, and their children, all the way down the line. And I've been noodling an observation based on what's in the book. In the book, I talk about one of the problems that comes about through automation is the possibility of mass unemployment. I use the analogy, back in 1890, there were 200,000 horses in the United States, in New York City, 200,000 horses in New York City. The car comes along. Today you have 1,000 horses, if that. We don't need the horse labor anymore. We need them to do what horses do, thoroughbred racing. And people say, well, yeah, there's always been new jobs when technology eliminates old jobs. But my counter is, yeah, that's true. And this is a good research project. But this is the first time we've ever had thinking machines. Machines really haven't thought before that. That's okay. So the problem is, what happens? You have mass unemployment, and then either corporate or government agency has to come along and support these people who can no longer be wage earners. We're seeing that happen, particularly now with COVID-19. We're seeing that realization has sort of been accelerated, okay, that these people are sitting home. We've got to give them at least, for selfish reasons, we have to provide cash, money, so they can keep spending, so we can keep a modicum of the economy going. And that's fine. But the other problem that happens is when people go home and they can no longer be wage earners, is their social structures are destroyed. And by social structures, I mean really simple things. Like I get up at 6 to be at work at 8. I work from 8 to 6. I have, I go home, I drive home or take the train, 30 minutes, dinner, TV, home, do it again, roll over that. And that's a skill you learn early on in life, because children are not born with the ability to organize themselves, organize their social structures. And so you learn, you go to school, you have gym time, math time, social studies time, and then by high school, you're left to move around. And then in college, you say you don't have to go to class every day, you go to class once a week. And as you mature, you learn to organize yourself. Then you go into the workforce, and now in the United States, it's really much more segmented. You work 50 weeks, 2 weeks off, and all that stuff. Highly organized, highly segmented lifestyle. Well, what happens when you send all these people home and there's no more 9 to 5? There's no more math time, no more lunch time, no more than that. And there's only so much to do. So you can surf the internet, you can play video games, you can play poker, you can play the stock market, whatever. But after a while, that wears thin. And eventually, and at the most extreme case, there's a psychological dynamic called ego panic, where you start losing it completely. So what we're seeing now, what became really striking to me, is when I started looking out over the landscape of people being home for 30 days, 40 days and not going to work, is we saw more what I call taking it to the street behavior. And this isn't about the justification for the justification of taking it to the street. That's another discussion. But it's more, regardless, we came down from Mars and we knew nothing about the political or social ramifications of what's going on. And we see, gee, people are sitting at home for 30 days and now they're out on the streets doing this. You can't help but notice that.
Yeah, I had made the same observation. You're talking about the medium or the act of expression, in this case, marching, gathering,
Yeah, we talk about marching, gathering. We can call it. One expression is Black Lives Matter. Another expression is we ain't wearing no masks. Another expression is we're going to the beach. I mean, just a lot of expression. I can call it taking it. People doing typically what they might not typically normally be doing if they had to work from 8 to 6 and make dinner for the kids. A lot, not going to school. I mean, just all this stuff. And so what we're seeing is, I suppose, and again, we need to prove this quantitatively in a scientific manner, is are we seeing social or the ability for one to organize their awareness starting to degrade? And so I need to do anything to bring social structure back into my life. And of course, being able to show up for a demonstration on time, or being able to not do something or plan to be someplace at a particular time, is an expression of that. It brings organization to your experience.
Brings organization. It brings purpose where maybe you're feeling there wasn't. It can be a lot of things.
Or momentary purpose.
Yeah,
momentary.
Certainly. So one thing I'd like to bring it back to your book, because you didn't write this book, just right before COVID, or
no.
This is work you've done over a period of time in your career. Right. And so what I think is about, as I reflect back, when I read it before COVID happened and all that, is it's a series of essays, but you're looking sort of historically and putting things together, making some conclusions and suggestions, and kind of eliciting that out of those experiences. So it really is a great kind of treatise of how did we get here. And I agree with you, whether it's AI or in this case, great disruption in the market and in employment and supply chains. And now, are we going to rehire people to do the same things? Or are we going to do them a different way? Do we need resources in a different, our business is going to consume resources, people, et cetera, automation in new ways, because there's that opportunity to reset, or maybe they're forced to reset because of market forces. So it's a really good book to read, because I think there's a lot of learnings from what we've seen happen in the past, as well as we kind of apply it going forward. And it's not going to repeat itself in the same way, but it will take some of those same lessons and apply it, I think.
Right. And it's going to be interesting. I mean, one of the things I'm watching now is the dynamics in the Postal Service. But I mean, the reason is because I just went down one day. I said, "Gee, where's my mail? My mail has, my mail delivery is no longer guaranteed to be daily in my district." And so what we're seeing is we're going to start seeing the rise of private services. UPS has always been a competitor to the post office, but FedEx and even Amazon now is going to be making their own delivery service for their own products. And that's appropriate. That's always been there. But then one of the things about the post office is that the post office was written into the Constitution. There's always been a postmaster general. And the reason for the post office, it was a way to unite the nation. How do you unite a nation? How do you make an American, right? How do you
communicate, right?
Yeah, how do you do that? How do you make an American? How do you? And what becomes interesting now is I have to go back and look at historical precedent, and particularly around the Napoleonic codes. Napoleon spent a lot of time thinking about the mechanics of government. And so, for example, in education, his dream was that at some point, every child in France would be reading from the same page of the same primer at the same time. Right? Because that was how you united a nation, was through the educational experience. Now, we can't have that now, but I'm being a little circuitous and long-winded, but I wonder what happens to communities that are that just are not profitable, where you can't profitably run a mail service up into the hinterlands of Alaska. Mm-hmm. What does that mean to be up there? What does it mean, right? When that it's just not profitable to run mail services. What does that do? What does that do to a nation? What does that do to a society?
Well, I said at the opening, conversations with you always go interesting places, and I always learn multiple things. Both of those have definitely been true in this conversation.
Well, thank you.
Yeah, it is. I enjoy it. I mean that very sincerely. So we definitely want, by the way, if you go read Bob's book on the impact of automation, that's the kind of exploration of what Bob's doing through some of these essays. And I think that's why it's so fascinating. So please check that out. It's on the Accelerated Strategy site. And also go to Digital Anarchist. There's a new, I kind of call it the Netflix of IT, right? It's got this great interface now that mimics a bit of that, but it's got just amazing content, including your 2 graphic novel comics. So I hope folks will check that out.
Yep.
Thanks for sharing with us and kind of giving us behind the scenes look at how that all came together too.
Thanks for giving me the time to share my thinking.
Absolutely. Take care, Bob. We'll talk to you soon.
DevOps.com is the #1 online destination for DevOps education and community building. DevOps.com covers all aspects of DevOps, including DevOps best practices and tools, DevOps culture, DevSecOps, business impact, continuous testing, continuous delivery, and more. DevOps.com has the largest collection of original DevOps content, featuring breaking news, blog posts, podcasts, and more. Visit www.devops.com to learn more. DevOps.com, where the world meets DevOps.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to today's Analyst Corner. My name is Sanjeev Sharma. I'm Principal Analyst and co-founder at Accelerated Strategies, and welcome. So in my last Analyst Corner, and if you haven't seen it, you can go to TechStrong TV's website and search it up. The video should be available by now, the recording of it. In our last session, I talked about multi-cloud, right? And what is multi-cloud? What is it not? And more importantly, I talked about, what kind of scenarios actually need multi-cloud and what kind do not, right? And we need to make sure before we jump into this onto this multi-cloud bandwagon, we do the proper analysis, the proper business thinking behind figuring out and technical thinking to figure out, does my application, my workload actually need multi-cloud, or am I just going down a path which is going to be very expensive in the long run for me and very difficult to achieve even. So go back, listen to that or watch that. But today I'm going to talk about why multi-cloud is difficult, right? And when we talk about multi-cloud or multi-cloud, depending on how you want to pronounce it, what everybody is looking for is, I don't want to have vendor lock-in and I want portability. I want to be able to go from cloud to cloud as needed with my application. I don't want to be locked into a vendor. I don't want to be locked into a price. I can go where compute is cheapest. That's something you hear a lot, especially in the AI and machine learning space. And I understand the thinking there. Or I want to be able to, renegotiate my contract and move. All of those make logical sense. But today I want to talk about why is it difficult? Why is portability not easy? Why can't you just pick an application and move it from here to there, right? That promise is very difficult to keep. And there are 3 reasons. So let's delve into that, right? Number 1 reason is something called data gravity. Data is heavy. Data is not like code, right? Data takes up a lot of space, a lot of storage. Storage is not cheap. Data is expensive to move, right? So not just in terms of, the cost of moving it because of network egress costs or data egress costs, which are very high, pretty much for every cloud vendor, other than I think IBM and Oracle Cloud, those have either none or low rates. But all the 3 big hyper cloud players all charge heavily for network egress costs. But there's also the cost of moving it, right? Other than the network egress cost, right? I mean, it takes time. Try to move a few hundred gig of, few hundred gig is not a lot of data, few hundred terabytes of data, right? From one region in one cloud to another region in another cloud, right? When you're moving from one region to another from the same cloud, you're probably going to get a very fast connection. because they have dedicated pipes between those two clouds. But when you're moving from one cloud to the other, it's going to take time, right? You can buy more and more bandwidth, but it will take time because, first of all, bandwidth is expensive, so you'll pay for it. You don't have infinite. Secondly, there is the distance, right? Yeah, if you're moving, from east to east, they're all here in Loudoun County, where I coincidentally happen to live, and it's not going to take a lot of time. But if you're moving from a data center here on the East Coast to another cloud, and you pick a region which is on the West Coast, or if you're in another country where the regions are not in the same geography or in another part of the world, and to move from one cloud to the other requires some distance, right, to going over. Well, laws of physics come in place, right? There's a speed of light and all, and it takes time. So that data gravity is a major issue. So the alternative people offer is, I'll just leave data where it is. Why do I need to move it? Well, then you come into two issues. Number one has got to do with latency. If you leave your data where it is and move your compute to where some other cloud, unless they are in the same geographical area, you'll have latency. You'll have network latency, right? You'll be, if your compute is, 500 miles away from your data, there is latency which is going to happen. And that latency, is not just about for the physical distance, but also network congestion and all those other things can impact that latency. So can your application handle it, right? If your application is, I get some data, I query it, and then after that, once I've gotten the data, I can cache it locally and I can go to town with it, fine. But if it doesn't, if you're going back and forth and you keep pinging your database and you're doing transactions and doing fetches and updates, your network latency can severely impact your performance. The second question is, what do you do about the data which gets created where your compute is? You got to bring it back to the source, right? You got to bring it back to the main data, and you can say, I'll run it, and every night I'll migrate it over. You've got to pay the net data egress cost then to the other vendor, right, to get it from there to here. And during that period of time, you're also storing data in two places, right? You're going to have to, pay for storage. And, which is why the replication piece doesn't work. Another thing I hear a lot is, I'll just replicate data between the two clouds. It's not free. Storage is expensive, and keeping them in sync means what? Network traffic happening, data egress happening from one cloud to the other, and that costs money. The second reason, which is actually more relevant, quite frankly, this one costs a lot, but the other one is one which makes portability a major problem, is using cloud services. Why do you go to the cloud? You want to go to the cloud because of the plethora, the wide menu of cloud services they're offering you, right? I don't have to run my own database anymore when I go to the cloud. I don't have to run my own middleware anymore. I don't have to run all these services which are available, right? There are hundreds of services in every cloud. Some clouds which are mature have thousands of services, right? The moment I start using any service which is provided to me by the cloud vendor, I'm locked in. I'm sticky, at least. My application becomes very sticky to the cloud. Even if I use just identity and access management in one cloud, I have now attached myself to a certain extent, and it's going to be painful to extricate myself and move to another cloud, because their identity and access management is going to be working very differently. Even if the underlying model is the same for any service, the APIs are going to be different. Their quality of service is going to be different. How you consume that service is going to be different. The pricing is going to be different. So those cloud services, you have to figure out how to, you use them, it's going to become sticky for you to get off that cloud. Is going to be difficult. If you don't use them, you're not leveraging the cloud. Then all you're doing is using the cloud as a data center, which is not yours. And, pay by the go, right? For the data center, you're going to deploy your own database, you're going to deploy your own load balancers, you're going to deploy your own, caching services, you're going to deploy your own logging and monitoring services, you're going to deploy your own middleware. And once you're doing that, then are you really leveraging the cloud, other than it being somebody's other data center, which has more elasticity, and you're paying with CapEx rather than OpEx, OpEx rather than CapEx. So the more you start using cloud services because you want to benefit from being in the cloud, the more stickier it becomes to one cloud. The lesser you use, you are more portable, but the lesser benefit you're getting from the cloud. So how do you draw that balance, right? And I've had many architectural conversations with clients trying to figure out what is the happy medium. They want to be portable, but they want to leverage the cloud also. It is an either or, unfortunately. The third has to do with migration cost, right? And when I say that migration cost, people don't look at the complete picture. They just look at the cost of moving application A from application B. I'm like, no, we're going to automate it. It's going to be so simple. We're going to use we're going to use some abstraction layer in between, which makes it portable. In Kubernetes, it is very easy. VMware is the same everywhere. We hear all these, but migration cost is more than that. You're not just moving the application. That's just one part of the migration cost. What else is there? There's the cost of changing all your monitoring and logging and alerting, right? What works in one cloud might not work the same way in the other cloud. All your runbooks need to change, right? Because how you do incident analysis, how you do responses to an outage or a quality of service loss is going to be different. Most importantly, what happens to your people? You hired this team. You have this team of these crack engineers for one cloud. Let's say they are AWS. So initial cloud is AWS, and you hired people with the most experience on AWS with the highest level of certifications, and you put this crack team together, and they have built your system running on AWS, and these guys are running your system for you, and it is being optimized every day. And suddenly you tell them, hey, I'm moving to Google. None of them has any experience with Google. They have no Google certifications. No, they can react in two ways. They can react and say, yippee, my client is going, my employer or client, if they're a contractor, is going to pay me to learn Google. I'm going to get certifications, and I'm going to add something to my resume. If they're junior, they might think that way. But if they're senior and they have tons of experience on AWS, guess what they're going to think? Let me update LinkedIn, find a client or an employer who is all in on AWS, where I can use this 7 years of experience and these 17 certifications I have. What do you do then? The cost of migration is more than just moving your application, folks. It's got to deal with people. And the people today are experts usually in one cloud. And how do their skills are fungible to a certain extent. Cloud is cloud after all. But those who have gone deep, those who have gotten certification, those who have gotten years of experience, they'll want to continue growing that and leveraging that. And in today's, in the job market, getting value in return for it. So all these need to be taken into consideration when you're saying, I'm going to make my application portable. It is not that straightforward. Think it through, guys. And if you'd like to talk more about it, myself and all us other analysts here at Accelerator Strategies, this is an area of expertise for us. We'll be more than happy to have a conversation. Till then, till the next time, enjoy your day, and signing off.
Join top experts and peers for a Splunk virtual event, DevOps Open Source Insights and Innovations. Open source powers the world, drives innovation in technology and in practice, and reduces the proliferation of products that just don't work together. In the arena of DevOps, open source tools and standards enable problems to get solved. Come take a look at some of the ways Splunk solves problems with open source and how we are contributing to open source solutions to make your work life better. Register today.
Thanks, Mitchell. Thanks, Bob. Thanks, Charlene. Thanks to all of our guests who appeared today on TechStrong TV. But most of all, thanks to you watching. This is the whole reason why we do this. And believe me, it's not easy doing this 3 days a week now that we're doing them. And thanks to our team for putting it out. But we hope you enjoyed. We hope you enjoyed the content. We're working on some new, different kind of content for you in the coming days and weeks. We will be back on tomorrow with another fresh show. But until then, we're going to sign off. Stay well, stay safe, stay strong, tech strong. This is Alan Schimmel.